donation. But they never did. And they said,
Ladies and gentlemen, you please stand.
Okay.
Join Councilman Williams in a salute to our flag and country.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for our prayer, please.
Giving God, thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness and for your blessings over us. You are able to bring hope through even the toughest of times, strengthening us for your purposes. Thank you for your love and care and your mercy and grace. Thank you that you are always with us and will never leave us. Thank you for your incredible sacrifice so that we might have freedom and life. Forgive us when we don't thank you enough for who you are, for all you do, and for all you've given. Help us to set our eyes and our hearts on you afresh today. Renew our spirits. Fill us with your wisdom. We love you and we need you this day and every day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of November 15th. Second item on the agenda is public comments, community announcements, and recognitions. It is November, so it must be Thanksgiving time. So we must have a visit from our favorite Evelyn Nephews. Miss Nephews, would you please go to the mic, identify yourself and your address?
All right, thank you. My name is Evelyn Nephew. My address is 524 East Perkins. It is the great city of Guthrie and the great state of Oklahoma. How's that sound?
It sounds good. It's a
All
good
right.
lead.
Well, council, it's that time again. It's time for us to eat and to be thankful. And I'm looking at my flyer here, and it tells me we've been doing this now for 19 years. Can you believe that?
Awesome.
19 years, and I haven't cooked at home on Thanksgiving Day in 19 years. And I appreciate it. But anyway, it's that time again. So on how we do this is on the Saturday before Thanksgiving, we do an annual benefit musical. And it's held at First Baptist Church at 6 o'clock. And many of you know Mitchell Iffy Pierce. He probably played football, coached him at Guthrie High. Well, now he's multi-talented, and so he also sings, and he plays the organ, and he plays the piano. And so he's going to be in charge of the musical that we're going to do on Saturday, November the 19th at First Baptist Church, where under the leadership of Pastor Hammonds. So y'all come, and all of our proceeds will go toward the Thanksgiving dinner. But then on the 24th, Thanksgiving Day, that is our dinner. And it will start at 11:30 to 2 at the American Legion Center. And it's 123 North 1st Street in Guthrie, Oklahoma. Everybody's welcome, everybody. And so sometimes our numbers fluctuate, and we go up and we go down. We do know we will lose Langston University this year because of their schedules. They're already out. They're already out before Thanksgiving.
Really?
And so anyway, so I think we'll lose them unless some of them just come back. But we're going to invite everybody else in that area, the community, and then everybody here. So we already have our caterer. We have a wonderful caterer. They come in and they just fix everything for us. They fix the food and then the desserts. They just do it all. But our volunteers are the best ever. We do have, and I like to see the young people, the young people who come in and they want to give back to our community, so they serve too. We put that apron around them, we kind of wrap it around them 2 or 3 times. If there's a hat, we give them a hat, and then we give them a glove, and they're ready to volunteer. And they do a fine job. And many of you have done the same thing. So I want you to know that it's on again for the 19th year. Y'all come. Any questions? I'll see you there.
Thank you very much, Evelyn, and thank you for those many years of initiating this. You and Pastor Hammonds are spark plugs to make that happen. And you do, it's a great service. And I know the Job Corps usually has a group of volunteers there too, traditionally. And I think Hope House had some last year, volunteers from all over the community, as well as people that are having a great meal and even greater fellowship during that time. So anyway, thank you for what you have done, and look forward to another hugely successful program, both fundraiser and the Thanksgiving dinner. Thank you. Item number 3, consent agenda. One item on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of November 1st, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes, folks. See the votes. Unanimous approval of those present to approve the consent agenda, item A. Item number 4, purchase of a high-pressured water jet sewer cleaner truck. Leroy, are you handling that, or?
I will.
Okay.
This one's broke into 2 different motions. The first one would be to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Premier Truck Group for a 2024 Freightliner chassis in the sum of $110,518.32 under state contract. And the second part of that is a purchase order to J&R Equipment to provide and mount the 2022 Vector jet sewer cleaner on the Freightliner chassis. And that's at the sum of $304,390.72. And the way we fund our sewer equipment is through our CMOM fee. We have a certain amount set aside to lease, purchase, or buy equipment. And so we're paying one piece off, and now it's an opportunity to use the same cash flow to replace another piece of equipment. And this piece of equipment is used daily for jetting sewer lines, and will replace a mid-1960s model, which has become very difficult to maintain. And we got quotes from 3 different banks, and the low quote was from F&M Bank at an interest rate at 4% for a 5-year term. Now, let me explain some of the supply chain issues relative to this. It appears in today's world the supply chain issues are getting complicated, and they're moving targets. It changes frequently and can be frustrating. And I told somebody it sometimes it akins, or it seems like to me, if you remember Abbott and Costello, we're in one of those who's on first scenarios. And that's the way it seems like in my office on many days dealing with some of these issues. To get the chassis to start it, it's a multi-step process. First, you got to get the chassis, and then once you get it, you got to get scheduled to put the Vector jet sewer cleaner portion on it. So in order to get the chassis, to get the process started, to get it produced in the first quarter next year, we had to jump through several hoops, and we were given a deadline. You got to order by this time. So we did that, and then we find out that Premier, who we're ordering the chassis through, talked to J&R Equipment, and they could not build or install the CERT jet part of it until the 3rd quarter. Well, we find out that Premier made a unilateral decision after we ordered it to move us from the 1st quarter to get our chassis to the 3rd quarter. Well, the problem that I had with that was if we got to get the truck. So if we get the chassis in the 1st quarter, at least we have that step out of the way. When you get to the 3rd quarter, if there's some factory in China that closes or doesn't make chips, they may not produce anything in the 3rd quarter. So I said, no, I want to move back to the 1st quarter. Well, then I find out that it's a multi-step process. They drop ship the chassis to Vector in Chicago. And so it would have to sit on their floor for 7 months until they were ready to do their part, and then they send it to J&R Equipment in Oklahoma City to finish it. So I said, as long as Vector had insurance to cover our chassis while it was sitting there, then I was okay with it sitting there. But I want to make sure it was insured. I didn't want to get a phone call one day in Chicago, our truck disappeared and it wasn't covered with insurance. So I said, first I want to make sure we got documentation that's insured. Then I want to go ahead and order it in the first quarter, so we at least got that step out of the way. If it's sitting there and they have to look at it every day, they may get to it before the third quarter, but at least it will be there in the third quarter. I told Tenny, if for some reason they don't have insurance, we can always have it drop shipped to Guthrie, and I always wanted to take a drive to Chicago with Tenny. And we just drive it up.
Not in that truck, I'll guarantee you.
Aren't we mandated to have insurance since we're gonna have a loan on it in the first place anyway?
We will have insurance, but it won't be delivered to us. So I just want to make sure there's not a gap in the process, but we should have insurance.
Yeah.
You're correct. But we will pay for it when it's delivered to Vector, just $110,000. And at that time, I would think we could get insurance, but I'd like for Vector to have insurance on it since it's sitting on their floor.
It's kind of weird. We got a Vector then is gonna do the whole installation here in Oklahoma City?
No, it's a two-step process. Part of it's done in Chicago, part of it's done.
Okay.
Complicated.
And I don't know if you were in here when I was telling Tenny, any deal I get like that, you have to work that hard to make it happen. You'll hate it when it's done. So don't be scared to walk away. 'Cause, you know, yeah.
Well, it's a piece of equipment we gotta have.
Oh, I know, but there's always like a ditch witch, like we were talking earlier, that will go down the alleys and stuff. Maybe that, which I'm just saying, anytime I try to make something happen, it'll go through 3 motors in the first quarter, so.
That's just the black cloud on yours.
So,
Hey, shut up, Tracy.
We're gonna believe for a better deal.
Sounds like a new hat.
so then on the financing, if we approve the finance tonight, 4%, it's locked in at 4%. We would borrow the money, we'd put it into our capital equipment fund, it would sit there. We got the cash flow to make the payments, we'll actually have it partially paid for before it even comes in. Unless for some reason we think interest rates is going to drop over the next 7 months, I would recommend we go ahead and finance it. So our recommendation is to approve the purchase order in A and let staff work through the issues, and then approve B so that we can get the financing and borrow the money and lock it in at 4% before interest rate goes up. But I just wanted to make you aware, it was a little bit of a complicated process.
So, and that's one of the, but we have to make sure the new guy or gal is gonna be all over this thing, since it's not gonna happen until third quarter potentially.
I will train them, when they come, the first thing I will do is I'll get a tape and show them, the who's on first process.
Yeah,
Yes, but Tenny's fully aware.
yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to approve the issuance of a purchase order for a premium truck for $110,000 plus, and to provide and mount a 2022 Vector jet sewer cleaner on that chassis for approximately total cost of $304,000.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
How votes Rand?
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to purchase the truck and then have the sewer cleaner attached to it for a total of $304,000 approximately. Also entertain a motion then to adopt resolution 2022-40 to approve the $414,910 of the financing for these two pieces of equipment at 4% for a 5-year term.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those present then to adopt Resolution 2022-40, approving the little over $414,000 financing at F&M Bank at 4% for 5-year term. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve Resolution number 2022-39, authorizing the application of the ARPA, the ARPA funds from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. This is for sewer lines and valves, I believe.
Water
And-
lines.
And water lines, I'm sorry, water lines and valves,
Correct.
approximately $1 million.
Correct, well, it'll be a $2 million project with $1 million match and $1 million grant.
Yeah.
And to kind of explain this, and you all may not be interested, you know, dealing with federal grants and state entities and federal entities on these grant projects, I'm back to the Abbott Costello, who's on first process again. We originally applied when the state got all of the ARPA funds from the federal government. They advertised how much they got. There was a portal process. You applied for funding for different things. We applied for some money for the Pollard Industrial Park and this project. And we were told and advised that, you know, to be competitive, if we provided a match, that we'd be competitive and more likely to get it. And so back in in December of 21, we adopted a resolution. We applied for this project. At that time, it was $1.7 million project, $865,000 our money, $865. More than likely, inflation, we haven't finished the actual documents, but we'll probably be applying for the same project, and it'll be a $2 million project now, but if not, we'll add some to it. Well, then we were told that the state legislature decided they didn't want to administer the ARPA money, and so they were going to distribute to different state agencies that were set up to administer grant programs like this. So they were going to give all this money to OWRB to administer. Well, then we told, well, you got to reapply. So we get to reapply, and that's what we're doing now. But the things I found interesting is we're told they're giving all the money to OWRB, and then I read in the paper the other day where some towns were given grants direct, didn't have to compete for it because they needed money worse than the towns like Guthrie. So there were some towns like Bethany got $4.6 million grant given to them directly by the state legislature. No match required, no application or competitive process. Needless to say, I expressed some opinions to our elected officials. Then you go to OWRB, and now we have to apply through a competitive process, which we're doing tonight. Towns under 7,000, they can get up to $1 million grant, no match requirement. But towns over 7,000, like us, we have to compete, and we're limited to, we could apply for a $4 million project we want to, but we're just not in that funding position. But whatever we apply for, we got to match dollar for dollar. So I was told by some officials that the reason they did this was they wanted to force cities to use the local ARPA money we got on these water projects. So to me, that's kind of the state legislature backdoor telling us how to use the local ARPA money we got, which I had some concerns about. And then I said, well, didn't Bethany get ARPA money direct from federal government? Well, that's a different story. I said, didn't the small towns get money direct? Yeah, but it wasn't as much. I said, same concept. So anyway, just to let you know, going through this process, staff's doing a great job, but it's like going through a maze sometimes. But what we will be doing is now we will be applying for roughly the same project, but with inflation, now we'll be doing roughly a $2 million project, $1 million grant. We used some of our ARPA money for the overrun on the CDBG project bid, because it came in higher. So we'll be using roughly $555,000 left from our local ARPA money we received direct from federal government, and then putting in about $445,000 out of the GPWA fund balance that was not budgeted. And I think we had about 1.5 million, so we got the money. I guess the silver lining in this is, if you think about the good things, just like the truck that we're dealing with and dealing with all of the supply chain issues, think over the last 6 years, how many 1960, 1970, 1980 vintage pieces of equipment our city has replaced in the last 6 years. And that's been because of good leadership of the city council, you all working with staff, staff working and being good stewards of public money and not spending everything in their budget, but when they had vacancies, they accumulated that money, and at the end of the year, it went into an equipment fund. So there's been a lot of people doing good work to do that, and I think that's a positive. On this, even though it's a little frustrating in getting the money for this server line project, we got 55 miles of sewer lines that predate 1995. Since 95, over the last 20 years, we've only replaced 2.5 miles. In the last 6 years, we will exceed that substantially. So it's kind of nice to see the progress we are making, even though we're going through various hurdles and challenges. City Council is showing good leadership, and I think the department heads have shown tremendous financial responsibility in how they manage their funds, and also creatively seeking federal grants to subsidize those dollars to make them go further.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote for it.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from all those present. Then to approve resolution number 2022-39, approximately $1 million of local money matched with $1 million from the, to go towards a grant from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for another $2 million towards water and valves replacement. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I adjourn our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting and call to order our Guthrie City Council meeting of November 15th. Second item on the agenda is consent agenda items A and B. A is the approval of the minutes of November 1st, 2022 City Council meeting, and B is to approve paying Young Contracting payment number 3 in the sum of $301,540 for the CDBG water main replacement project along Division.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote for it.
See the votes. Unanimous approval of consent agenda items A and B. Item number 3, discussion possible action on resolution 2022-38, providing a 2023 primary and general election of the City of Guthrie for offices of the mayor and city council members, and naming the voting precincts.
The election process is set up by the city charter and provisions of Oklahoma statutes. Kim handles all this for us. It's run by the Logan County Election Board. This resolution will set the filing period, just like it was 2 years ago. December 5th, 6th, and 7th is the filing period, from 8 to 5 on those 3 days. If needed, if there's more than 2 candidates for mayor or 2 candidates for a given position, there would be a primary election on February 14th. If there's only 2 candidates for mayor, then that one won't show up on the primary, or if one of the city council positions has 2 or less, it won't show up on the primary. And then the general election's on April 4th, and if the mayor or any of the candidates, if there's only 1 person filed, they are automatically declared because Oklahoma doesn't have write-in candidates. So filing for December 5th, 6th, and 7th, primary election, if required, February 14th, general election, April the 4th. The 3 individuals, well, of course, the mayor, and then Ward 1, James Long, Ward 2, Brian Bothroyd, and Ward 3, Donna Chandler, the positions up. And if my notes serve me right, the new council will, those new council members will take office the first Monday in May 1st. And I retire on April 28th, so I won't see anyone.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to approve resolution number 2022-38.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those present then to approve resolution 2022-38, providing the 2023 primary and general election concepts, dates, and parameters. Item number 4, discussion and possible action to approve and adopt the terms and conditions of the U.S. Department of Energy, the program, the state energy program for lighting agreement as presented and authorized by the mayor, executed by grant agreement. This is the lighting for our city buildings.
And this one worked out pretty slick for us. The estimated cost of the project to change out the lighting to the LEDs in City Hall, Police Department, Animal Shelter, Fire Department, Public Works Complex, and the airport. The cost estimate was $89,948.78. We got a 100% grant to pay for the full project. It's projected that our annual savings from reducing our electric consumption, we will save about $26,000 a year. Even we save less, we come out of winter because we didn't pay anything out of pocket to do the project. And then on top of that, we'll be able to turn into OG&E and get a rebate for $37,833 for doing the project. So this one worked out pretty slick.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those present then to accept, to approve and adopt the terms of the state energy program lighting as Leroy has identified. Item number 5, discuss and possible action to accept a grant of $61,722 from the National White Collar Crime Center to purchase 12 automated license plate reader cameras for 2 years. Chief, you handling that?
I am handling.
All right.
I'm supposed to be getting my power on.
Here he comes.
Here he comes.
It's broke.
This presentation will be by Hector from the Flock Security Company. When he gets done, I can tell you why we're going to go with
Is
Flock.
that our proposed vendor?
Yes, yes.
Hector, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Okay, Hector, I think we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Just one quick step. It seems as though screen sharing is disabled at the host. If I can just have access to that, that'd be great.
He's coming.
Did I do it?
Yes, it did. Perfect. Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Hector Soliman Valdez. I am a community engagement manager with Flock Safety. Tonight, I will be giving you all a little bit of information about our company, our mission, our values, and diving into our Falcon ALPR and how we help communities solve crime while protecting privacy, and provide you a little bit of overview on some of the success that we're seeing nationwide, and then answering any questions that the council may have. So that being said, why Flock Safety? For those in the council or in the chambers that may not be aware, license plate reading cameras have been around for 30, 40 years, but Flock Safety really has revolutionized our industry by creating a product that is available to communities such as yours in a software as a service type model. We actually got our start out over 5 years ago when our CEO and his community were victims of repeated crimes, burglaries, larcenies, and other things in his community. Many of them had footage, would provide it to the police, you know, ring cameras, etc. And the police in Atlanta let them know, hey, we can't do much with this. We need a license plate. That would be the first good clue to start solving these type of crimes. Garrett set out to build, like I said, a technology that could be available to his HOA so that they could partner with the police and provide them with the right type of evidence. And that being said, our mission is to eliminate crime for the whole community. So engaging with the private sector, but again, providing police the level of service at a reduced rate that they need to solve crime. With our cameras, because it is a software as a service model, you're purchasing the right to have cameras placed in your community. We still own them, which means that we still maintain them. We do all of the permitting, installation, continual software upgrades, etc. So that means that none of the staff time at your city will be dedicated to running the program itself. The police will be able to focus on solving crime, which is in alignment with our vision. So as I mentioned before, kind of when I talked about our story of how Flock kind of came about, what we've observed is that there are limited police resources out there, right? There's only X amount of police out at any given time in your city, and if the chief would like to talk about that a little bit later, he can do so. But what we've seen, is that providing them a technology that helps them solve crime is basically giving them a force multiplier. Additionally, we have seen that crime is on the rise throughout the country, whether it's catalytic converter thefts, etc. And we want to be able to capture and distribute objective evidence, right, to the right user, to the law enforcement officers. At the same time, we have seen that nationwide, trust is needed more than ever, right? The community wants to make sure that the police, that they support and are out there every day, have the technology that they need, and that they can be engaged and kind of know what work they're doing. So diving into how the technology works to help solve crime in your community, what you're seeing on your screen, top right-hand side is that objective evidence, right? It's the back of the vehicle. As you can tell, you don't see any people, there's no facial recognition or traffic enforcement. Again, it's that indiscriminate evidence from fixed locations working around the clock to help solve crime. The police are also able to use what's called the vehicle fingerprint technology, right? So that allows them to search for Hondas or makes, etc., to filter on in their searches. It's also important to talk about what the technology is not. It's not tied to personal identifiable information, i.e., we're providing the police with that objective data. Hey, this is a vehicle of interest. This is a vehicle that matches the description that you're looking for, but we're not providing any DMV records, anything associated with the person inside. This is providing, again, evidence and a good investigative clue or lead for the police to then do some good police work too. Our our retention policy at Flock is a standard of 30 days. This is important because it provides the police enough time that, let's say somebody's on vacation in your community and reports a crime after 2 weeks, they're still able to go in and find some evidence, but then it's not a long-term gathering of data, right? That data is automatically deleted and is no longer available. So I want to dive down. We kind of talked a little bit about the technology, how it works, but it really has 3 facets, and I want to break that down to you all. It's proactive in the sense that it'll provide the police an alert on their computers in their vehicles or on their desktops when a stolen vehicle or other type of alerts to the national database come in. And so they'll let them know within 20 seconds that that vehicle is in the community. They're then able to commence an investigation at that point. It's investigative in the sense that if there is a burglary or anything else is reported, and let's say, I hope nobody has a red Honda in the room, but let's say they say it's a red Honda. Now they're able to look to see if there's any vehicles that match that description using the filters to commence their investigation. It's also a deterrent, right? So more and more communities in your area are adding Flock cameras, which means that, you know, the criminals or the folks committing these crimes in vehicles will know, hey, Guthrie is a community that is protected by ALPR through Flock. As I mentioned earlier, you know, our mission is to eliminate crime involving the whole community. We were started off to provide license plate reading cameras to the private sector for our CEO's community itself, the neighborhood that he lived in. So mitigating risk and protecting privacy is something that is at the core of everything we do. Traditional LPR vendors would sell the data or share the data. At Flock, that will never happen. The data is owned by this agency/city, and it will never be sold or shared by Flock. That's, you know, a really important point to point out. And it's also taking out the human bias out of crime solving, right? So we're providing you with objective data and detecting events that are objectively illegal, right? So it's a stolen vehicle in your community. We also store our data in the highest level of encryption available or secured cloud, which is the Amazon Web Services government cloud. It's end-to-end encrypted. Basically, in layman's terms, this is the same exact database used for storage by federal agencies. As I mentioned earlier, there's no personal identifiable information, so it's important to note. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. It is important to note that also means there's no traffic enforcement that can be turned on or eventually be used, right? This is not going to be red light cameras, anything like that. And then Flock has a unique transparency portal, which I'll dive into right now, which will allow your community, you know, to see the work that your department is performing and measure that return on investment, right? So how many alerts are being received at your department? How many searches? What other agencies is your department searching with? I put some examples here that you're welcome to just Google and you'll find them online already active. This is updated daily so that the community has access to that. In addition, your department is able to put their policy in there so that folks that want to learn a little bit more about how they'll be you know, performing their work can dive in there as well. That being said, I want to end with how we're actually solving crime in your area. Want to mention some of the early adopters, such as Tulsa PD. In their first 2 months, they, in just their phase 1, they were able to recover 28 stolen vehicles, 6 stolen guns, and over $400,000 in recovered stolen property. And even were able to was able to lead to an arrest in a homicide suspect, or of a homicide suspect, excuse me. I really want to read the quote here from the Chief Franklin, where he says, this technology has basically been like, we have operated in the dark, and flipping this technology on is like flipping on a light switch. And that's such a prescient quote, because what I've seen throughout the country is, you know, these cameras give the police the ability to know exactly where those stolen vehicles are. And sometimes you'll see that awareness leads to higher numbers in stolen vehicles, but also higher captured, because you're working in the dark, right, without having this technology. This is from Locust Grove, you know, another community in your area. They recovered 10 stolen vehicles within the first couple of days of their installation. 2 people arrested in a stolen vehicle with narcotics, so associated crimes. and it helped identify a wanted suspect. Also want to start highlighting, I know as you've been hearing, this definitely helps with stolen vehicles, any vehicles that are alerts, but there's so many uses to this technology where it's helping prevent crime, right? And so this is a scenario in San Bruno, California, that made the news, right? They went into this jewelry store to try to rob it, but they had armed security. And so the armed security shooed them away and did his job valiantly. But what the police believed would happen is that they now know that there's armed security there. That group was going to come back, escalate their level of violence, and try again. And so the police were able to put an alert on that vehicle. So as soon as it entered into that shopping center, they were able to stop the vehicle in its tracks and stop that from, becoming a worse situation. So really wanted to point out how this is being used as a preventative tool as well. And want to end with a story out of Georgia that to me is extremely impactful. This is a stranger on stranger abduction, something that, happens extremely rarely. And again, as I said, this happened in Georgia. Mother was walking her child in his stroller. Two, what she thought men came up to her, took her child away. There was no way to identify them. They had masks on, but she did see the vehicle that they left in. So she gave that description to police. They started investigating right away, found a plate, put an alert on that plate, and found that vehicle in Alabama, and were able to make a felony arrest. As you see in the timeline, this all happened within 6 hours, which shows you that the network effect that your city would be joining helps crimes like this that you just never want to occur in your city be solved within hours, which in this type of case, every minute counts. And that being said, I did a little bit of talking at you all, but I definitely wanted to present kind of our vision and our mission of eliminating crime, what our technology does, and then just how we've been successfully solving crime throughout the country. So I want to put it back to you all to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Hector?
Yeah, so it's 61,722 for 2 years. Is that the total? That's the total cost for the first 2 years, right?
That is the total cost.
What happens after that?
We can either opt to continue it or we can discontinue it. We're under no obligation to continue any further, and if we decide to opt out, they come pull their equipment, and it doesn't cost us anything.
But historically, over the last 5 years, what happens to your price points annually?
They've increased one time from 2,250 a year to 2,500. The great thing about the 2-year contract is that you're locking it in for that time. Honestly, it's not increasing next year, from what I know, but we're fairly consistent with our pricing.
That was my question.
Any other question? Leroy?
So does that mean roughly something a year after that?
Roughly, if we do decide to continue with it.
I'd like to caution everybody with thinking about that number. When we're like in executive session and talk about raising the rates and that kind of thing, this is not a one-hit deal like a road grader transmission. When you turn this on, if you're going to stay with it, it doesn't go away. It's just like when we raise payroll. When you raise it to that level, you're there if you're going to have it. And that's
And I hate to, but I would disagree. The way I look at it is we've got a 2-year probationary period that we can try this out for. And if it does not fit our community or our community's needs, it will go away.
Yeah, it can go away, but like I said, if we want to keep it, then it's, I had a cell phone company gave me a cell phone one time.
Yes.
I paid on it till my kids were out of college.
Yes.
So as long as you want to talk on it.
But really, that's not up to me or the city manager, that's up to the council. Just like when we hired the 3 firemen, right? And we're gonna give them this 2-year period to try to come up with additional money from the county. That's what we're doing here. I'm asking for the chance to do this for 2 years at absolutely zero cost to the city. In addition to that, I've reached out to the Attorney General's office, and they have a Project Safe Neighborhoods grant. And since we have never applied for it and we've never gotten it, they feel pretty confident that we could get it. Their average award would pay for another 2 years.
Yeah, it seems, at least on surface, it appears that there's no risk, there's no cost.
People are always worried about privacy.
And, you know, of course, I don't know exactly what metrics we use. Hector identified some metrics there of what a successful program looks like. But picking up stolen cars, I don't know if that's, you know, is picking up 3 or 4 stolen cars in Guthrie, America over a year, is that justification for keeping it? I think we need to be thinking about that as
Sure.
if we enter into this. But
Sure.
on surface, it appears to be no risk, no cost, and something that may have some potential benefits to the safety of our community.
Correct. One of the complaints that I've got, or the concerns that I've been given, is about privacy. And I think probably what most people don't understand is this thing takes a single picture of the back of a car. And that's it. And I think there's this misconception that the camera runs the tag through, you know, our databases and comes back with all this information. 99.9% of those tags will never get run for any reason. If you're worried about the information that's generated, we've got more capabilities in our cars right now to run stuff than this system ever does. We have access to OLEDs from inside the car, so we can run your driver's license history, we can run for warrants, we can run your criminal history. We've also got access to some program from one of the credit bureaus where we can run your credit. This does none of that. This provides you an investigative lead. The only thing it does is it compares it to what's called a hot list. And so the hot list contains stolen vehicles, stolen tags, wanted persons, amber alerts, silver alerts, blue alerts, stuff like that.
You can put what
It's
you
not
want.
going to tell us if the guy's driving under suspension. It's not going to tell us, you know, if he doesn't have insurance. You know, the state of Oklahoma already has however many of these cameras all over the state through a different company that will send you insurance tickets in the mail when it runs your tag, because it actually runs your tag.
What communities have them, I'm out of curiosity, because I haven't heard of this before this time here.
Right now, there
Does
are a
Edmond
ton of
have it?
communities that have it. It's just now really caught on in Oklahoma. Tulsa has it, Oklahoma City has it. One of the things, we didn't know Oklahoma City had it. We had a runaway that we thought was endangered here, and we were looking all over the place and couldn't get a lead on her at all. We called Oklahoma City. They punched it into their flock network, and they said, look, she's passed these 2 cameras 16 times in the last 2 days. So what do? We triangulate it. We find a relative inside there. Well, guess where our runaway was? At the relative, located using this technology.
Because it took a picture of her in the camera and you were able to verify that with a picture?
No, it took a picture of a tag that we had, that we were interested in, but nobody could find it. We put out bolos for it and everything else, and it just wasn't popping up. But the second we called Oklahoma City and said, hey, do you have any other means to check this? Well, they put it into flock. And I mean, that fast, we're told, you know, she's passed here 16 times in 2 days. Both these cameras.
In May, we talked about this and okayed the 30 cameras, body cams. At that time, you said that this technology was adaptable to these cameras, but you told the provider of those cameras at that time that our community was not ready for that. You made that decision on your own. So what makes you think their communities changed their mind in 6 months?
Well, part of the problem is that vendor had different capabilities. This is one of the reasons I told you there's about 3 reasons why I like this flock camera system. And it's because they don't run tags. The other company, A, runs tags, and B, will not put inside the contract that they will not sell personal information. Flock, I mean, it's right there on the slideshow, and it's right there if you looked at the contract. They never, ever, ever own our information. We own that information.
So you're saying that the only way it gets a hit on a tag is something that a law enforcement agency puts in there to look for?
Correct.
I don't think it's any coincidence that their name is Flock Safety, meaning, you know, a flock, a group of animals, or I think of sheep, or that the fact that Flock Safety's National Alliance license plate tracking network is named after a bird of prey, Talon. That kind of bothers me as a citizen, back to what you said earlier, that people are concerned about, you know, their privacy. But are you familiar with the term mission creep?
I am.
Oh, for the benefit of those listening, I'll read the definition.
Sure.
Mission creep is the gradual and incremental expansion of an intervention, project, or mission beyond its original scope, focus, or goals. A ratchet effect spawned by initial success. Mission creep is usually considered undesirable due to how each success breeds more ambitious interventions until a final failure happens, stopping the intervention entirely.
I guess I would ask, how do you call this mission creep?
Well, Mike, being 60 years old and seeing, this is my personal opinion, the federal government and the government approaching, the mission creep begins with a good idea, but then it leads to one or another expansion of into an area that we're all talking about here is privacy. I spent a lot of
You
time
can see it
studying
that
this.
way. It's not mission creep because this is what we're supposed to be doing. The problem is we're at this weird position in time right now, right? We're down 4 police officers. We need more than that. We probably need an additional 4 on top of that. And nobody wants to be the police. And so these are extra eyes on the road where when I've got one guy out taking a report and another guy back at the PD writing a report and there's nobody on the road, these guys can come up and say, hey, here's this guy that's wanted for murder. Hey, here's this guy that's in a stolen car, and we can respond. It is a force multiplier that, you know, I mean, you can add 4 police officers at a base price of almost $60,000 a year, or we can try this for 2 years and see if it works.
So Chief, let me ask a question. This only takes a picture of the back of the car and the license plate. So where are
Correct.
these gonna be?
Do what?
These won't take a picture of the front windshield and the people in the car?
No.
How's that? I mean,
It's how their technology is set up. Most of them
but these
do
are
it that way.
stationary cameras
Yes,
set out there.
Correct.
You know,
But they're aimed they're aimed to pick up the rear of the car.
Maybe Hector can answer that question.
Go ahead.
I mean, I can see that.
Yes, so the cameras are going to be placed in the direction of traffic, right? So they're aimed at so that vehicles are passing by it. The machine learning is also made so that it's looking at the back of the vehicle and its unique features. That's how it'll know whether it's a Honda versus a Ford, etc. So that's why it's aiming at the back of the vehicle. In addition to that, we mask it so that it's only aiming at those lanes that are traveling away from it. So that's basically the gist of how that works, so that it's not capturing other information.
Mission creep it and turn it the other direction so it catches the nose of the car?
Well, sure they
It
can.
wouldn't work. It wouldn't work that way, right? Because then you wouldn't be able to filter.
Hector, is it in the contract that it only takes a picture of the rear end of the car in the license plate area?
It is not specifically in the. That could be a red line that could be suggested by your city. It is positioned. If you think of a road that's traveling north and south, it would be positioned. Let's say one camera on each side of the road, one to capture those vehicles traveling north, one to travel those vehicles traveling south. Your police department, when they're searching for a vehicle, they know, okay, I believe it went north. When they search for a description of that vehicle, those descriptors will then help them, will only work if the vehicle is captured in the rear, right? Because one of the reasons that we actually did that, if you think about it, every single state requires a rear plate. Not every state requires a front plate. In addition to the privacy concerns. So just from a logistic perspective, that is why the rear vehicles are essential.
Thank you. Another question. So I read somewhere where this capable of reading like 3,000 tags, I don't know, a minute or something? How's that identifying a Honda 85 Honda versus a 95 Honda versus any other Honda or Chevy or Ford? Isn't it the tag that's telling them what that car is, or should be?
No, so the machine learning is taught to identify the emblem of a Honda versus an emblem of a Ford. The tail lights are all different, right? So it's what we call the vehicle fingerprint. Each of those makes and or really makes have different telltale signs that will allow the machine learning to know what it is, so that when the police search for that description, they've been given a report or they have ring footage of the vehicle but no plate, they're able to say, okay, red Honda, the machine learning is able to say these are the red Hondas that in that time frame at that camera.
The state controls that database, and the only ones, the only cameras the state allows to access that database are the insurance cameras. They do not allow anybody else to access that database. So it's strictly off visual acuity of the camera and the programming contained therein. It is not, it doesn't run anything.
So
It takes a picture of the rear of the car.
So the personal confidentiality is very high.
Right, right.
So when you come in on I-35 from Turner Falls, for example, heading north, there's cameras right there.
Well, that's what I was gonna say
That are
too.
taking pictures
If
of you
anybody's
as you
been
go
on
in.
I-35 going to Oklahoma City,
Yeah.
you get your picture taken at least twice, and if the drug interdiction units are out, you get it taken at least 4 times. If you go to Stillwater, you get your picture taken once. If it's on game day, you get it at least twice. And that's just on this little ice stretch of I-35. You go on the turnpike where they have Pike Pass and Plate Pay, it's the same thing. You go down to Capitol, everything's down there is taking a picture of. This
Isn't that what
is,
they're installing right now?
Yes, it's exactly.
North and south of us? On the side of the highway, there's,
Yeah.
Out by Camp Road.
I mean, all of us.
is it on 35?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They poured slabs and there's,
And they're
No, what's going in there is, they're gonna put in some of those, the big message signs.
oh, yeah.
Yes.
But I think your point, Chief, which is a good one, is that if any of us have traveled I-35 or 40 on the Turnpike.
If anybody's left the city of Guthrie,
You've
they've had their picture
You've
taken.
had your picture taken many, many times in that process. This will not take your picture, it's taking a.
Well, and I think that that's part of the reason you see the highway patrol, all of a sudden there's 5 or 6 of them out there and they've got some just inconspicuous vehicle, and they got the whole thing torn apart and they're doing a big drug bust.
Right. And here's the deal with privacy on this. You're getting a picture of your license plate, right? Where I can sit in the car and run your driver's license, your license plate, your criminal history, and your credit history, if that's what I want to do. And that's all through, except for the credit history, it's all through a state database. This database right here tracks our activity inside that system better than the state has ever tracked what we do when we run your criminal history, your driver's license history, your tag history. And then one of the other big reasons that I like this company is because they have that transparency portal. It tells you who we work with, what other law enforcement agencies, how many cases it's helped solve, how many cars we're running in a day. I mean, if you pull up that page, it's got tons of information on there that the citizens can go and look at. It's got stuff in there where you can go look, is this being effective in your eyes? It's not, hey, what's the chief coming up here and feeding you? You can go to this portal and see, hey, are we gaining anything from this?
Well, if you know there's a red Honda that is being searched for, you can just search the system on the red Hondas and then you can weed it out by potentially license plate number, or go to all of those residences where that Honda resides, if it's within Guthrie,
You could.
and potentially find your guy or gal. I mean, that's the investigative side of it.
Right, on the investigative side, correct.
Yeah.
But another thing we need to think about too, and maybe y'all don't care, but practically every meeting that we have that involves the public, people will come here and whatever the issue is, they're saying, that's why we come to Guthrie, it's community. You can walk down the street and you can see people you know and you talk to them and it's got that small town ambiance, if you will. And to me, having these things up, one, as soon as we do it, it's going to make the news. And there's going to be a news story, and it's going to go to a lot of people. And a lot of people that are less informed and haven't been here and heard all of this are gonna go, well, if Guthrie's playing that game, I don't need to hang out there. Never mind that they're in 8,000 other databases. It's just a deal of, to me, it's another chip at taking away the local hometown type feel that we have, you know.
It's just like he showed, I mean, all these places in Oklahoma have already been advertised for having these things. And I don't think anybody's really losing business, and the alternative to that is come to Guthrie, it's safer. These guys that steal cars and are wanted for murder aren't coming here about after the first year because they figured out that we're running their tax. And this is a more expensive option, I didn't price it this way, you could, I mean, these things basically hide themselves. Basically, when you have the traffic lights up there, it's about 4 feet tall, because those lamps are anywhere from 8 to 12 inches according to the manual and uniform traffic control devices. Their camera, this is the size of it. This is actually just a little bit wider than the size of their camera, 3 by 5. So they can wire that directly into one of our posts or not.
Well, a side argument to your argument, and I understand your argument, trust me, I do. And I feel that sentiment. But a side argument to that is many people, if not all these days, are putting up a ring, for example, okay? And the reason that they're doing that is so that they can see who's there.
Right.
Okay? This is no different. This is just seeing who's coming through our town.
And actually, there's some free ALPR software out there that you can run through your Ring camera, and you can do your own tag photographing off your doorbell camera.
Y'all gonna have Tracy too scared to drive.
Leroy, you had a comment?
I have some questions that don't necessarily deal with the merit of whether we do it or not, but if I understand correctly, the National White Collar Crime Center is the one that actually got the grant from the Department of Justice.
Correct.
And they're giving sub-grants out to different entities.
Correct.
And in the grant agreement from NW3C or the National White Collar Crime Center, there was a few things that concerned me. Repeatedly in this grant agreement, it says that the funding is subject to availability. In 4.1 of your grant agreement says all payments are subject to the availability of funding from the Department of Justice.
Sure.
In 8.1, it says, this agreement is funded by federal cooperative agreement. Should funding not be available, NW3C will notify subrecipient, and this agreement shall be rendered null and void immediately. My question relative to that terminology is, if we sign a contract with a vendor such as Flock, we get an invoice, we turn it in, is our grantee going to be able to say, well, we didn't get as much money from the Department of Justice?
I've talked to our vendor, and, he's willing to put the standard stuff in there about how if you don't get funded, you don't pay. Also, I've talked to the NW3C, and effective October 1st of this year, that all their grants, this is the first time that place has ever given out a grant. And all of their funding has been secured for their 2-year grant period.
So can they send us an addendum to document that? It concerns me, we're gonna sign a contract for $61,000, but then our funding source is saying, well, if we don't get the money, we're not gonna pay. So I would like to see some clarification on that.
Maybe, I don't
And
know how it's gonna be.
There's another thing I read in there, and he's right. It goes from the Department of Justice to Department of Justice projects to the white collar. It's all subbed down, so there's a jillion pages. And in one of them in there, it's number 34 or number 35. It basically says, regardless of anything, the Department of Justice owns any data that is collected off of this deal. And I can't believe the Department of Justice is going to say, it's okay, just flush it. We went to the trouble to collect it. Y'all just flush it. To me,
The only data they're talking about is research data. They're not talking about data that they collect on the cameras.
Well, that's what the lines, and that's another, my problem with it, since we're teaching new terms, a gill net. What a gill net is, it's a net that some fishermen use. It's illegal to use, but they stretch it out in a long stretch, kind of like you would see on a tennis court. And the way it's made, the fish can start through it, they can get their nose through it, and then when they figure out they're hung in something and they go to back out of it, well, their gills are caught. And the reason they're outlawed is because the wildlife people see that as hitting below the belt, because you're not only catching the game fish, you're catching the innocent guy driving down. And it's the same deal with deer hunting. You can't hunt deer after dark because they can't see well in the dark. But to me, this technology, we're spotlighting deer. And
I think, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, well, I can understand why you want it, and I see that, if it all worked that way, but I'm kind of like Tracy. I'm scared of mission creep and the gill net.
Well, that's my deal. It's not mission creep. It's exactly what the police department's supposed to be doing. We just don't have the numbers.
You know, I was going to say, you know, there's hardly a few weeks, 3 or 4 times a month on Facebook that somebody isn't talking about or taking a picture of a vehicle that's been parked outside their house or been driving up and down their street, and they're concerned about their safety. It would seem to me this type of technology might help with that, give assurance, if you will, or spotlight, just like the
It's not cheating.
Example.
It's just, it's helping us do our job with fewer people. That's why I say it is a force multiplier. Instead of spending $60,000 for new police officers per person, we're gonna get weird police officers, I guess, electronic police officers for 2 years for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on the thing as well, but I'm trying to look on both sides of the fence. On the positive note of it potentially is when a surrounding area or community has, whether it's an Amber Alert or it's somebody that, escaped from prison and they stole a car or whatever. Okay, if our guys knew about it and someone was, if it just sits there and nobody goes and checks this out, then I'm not for it whatsoever. But, I mean, if someone were actually going to check it out and say, okay, over here in Payne County, there's been somebody escaped from jail, they stole the red Honda, tag number XJ7555, okay, last they knew, and we had people looking for that in the database because we got the cameras set up, we might be able to catch the guy.
We
Okay.
might.
Right.
Or not.
But that's also the reason they do bolos.
But that's the reason.
And sometimes they work and sometimes they
Le-
don't.
Leroy, you had another comment?
Well, I've got a few comments. No, if I may, with the analogy on the fishnet, I thought that was a really interesting one. I'm somebody that lives in Los Angeles, so pretty big city, not a lot of hunting. But what I thought was interesting about that is that with Flock, what it's doing is that instead of the police maybe saying, this is a suspicious vehicle to me, it helps pinpoint this is a stolen vehicle, and to the point you're making now, it alerts them automatically that it is in your community within 20 seconds of them arriving. And the chief can kind of go into this, but the vast majority of crimes are associated with a vehicle, and stolen vehicles themselves are they're stolen to commit other crimes and go undetected, right? So that is a really big value of having your police, especially with limited resources, know when that vehicle that is going to most likely commit a crime comes into your community. And to the point where you were making of the field of safety, we really see this as an enhancement from all of the agencies that we see. There's, as I mentioned in one of the stories, there is a preventative aspect to it with the hot list work, right? In addition to the investigation. So I kind of just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Since you're handling the SaaS part of this deal, are you actually putting in the stolen vehicles within Oklahoma or whatever into this database that they're automatically going to search and notify our guys?
Yeah, so the way that it works, our system is connected to the national database, NCIC, and I can let the chief kind of give you guys more color on how that works at the local level. That is updated. Let's say there's a vehicle that's stolen out of Guthrie. he will update that, put it into the database. At that point, any flock camera where that vehicle is seen will alert the department to which those cameras belong. And so let's say it's across state or it's in Oklahoma City, they will be alerted of that vehicle as well, because now it's in the national database. So we do that directly with NCS.
If it was in California and that person left Guthrie with a stolen vehicle into California, you would retain that person as well?
If the person leaves Oklahoma, travels to California, and is seen by flock cameras, the vehicle, I should say,
Police force be notified?
Yes.
that local police force will be notified if that vehicle's been entered into NCIC. In California, specifically, it transfers over to California's stolen vehicle system.
And are you deleting the national database every 30 days or just what we have here?
The national database is updated several times a day. As police recover vehicles, they'll report that vehicle has been recovered, it is taken off. So we'll have, the latest data there. What's deleted every 30 days is the images within your system, right? So they have what's called the time to live. So images taken right now, it has a 30-day timestamp, and it will automatically be deleted at that point. And those are the images within your system, right? And so
Still there?
No. So I'll jump on this because that's I'm in the software as a service business. That's part of what we do. You can't keep this data forever. You're not gonna have big enough systems to keep all, it's just not gonna keep it forever.
But what Don's asking is about the national database, and that national database is what's maintained by law enforcement. It is a centralized computer system, so if I enter something wanted or stolen, it goes in our computer system, it goes to OLEDs, and then it gets fed specifically into that wanted or stolen piece.
You're talking about NCIC?
Yes, and that's what it is.
But we're talking locally is what I was talking about, and the local databases that they're gonna have, these cameras are gonna be taking, like Tracy said, hundreds and thousands of pictures a second potentially, or however much traffic's flowing.
Right.
You're not gonna keep all that forever. You're
Leroy?
just not.
No
They're not,
way.
they don't want 700 pictures of your DNS auto truck going up and down division. They just
Some people might.
Leroy?
I'm the bean counter, so I've got about 4 more questions on the grant agreement. I know you're all debating the merits of it. I'll be patient and work my questions in between if
Right.
I need to. But the second question I have, in 6.7, it talks about training required. And is the cost of that training built into that 61,000, or is that going to be in addition?
No, the training, Block provides us with the resources, and we train our officers.
So there's no additional cost?
Correct.
The next one I have, in 11.0, the grant agreement is subject to Virginia law. I never recommend the city to sign something where it's covered by law out of the court.
Yeah, that doesn't make
system out of
sense.
state. We always reject those and they can change it to that. We don't want to go to Virginia if there's a dispute. So that's a concern I have. We rarely, if ever, do that. So I feel that's the city attorney. The next one I have, I know Flock is the preferred vendor, but what we have to go through a vendor selection process, we can't just hand it to them.
Well, I mean, I guess that's up to you. Flock does have a sole source letter, and the big difference between Flock and the other ones that you're not gonna get to match, everybody takes a picture of the tag. Nobody has the programming and the algorithms to come up with the color of the car, how many doors it is, and a make and model. Everybody else strictly runs the tag.
So there's a lot of language in here on selecting your vendor, but you're saying that they've got a sole source letter, so we can get that approved by our grant agreement entity, that we don't have to go through the selection process. And then the last question I had, it was my understanding the grant agreement, I didn't see it in any materials in the package, that we're required to have these cameras in multi-jurisdictions, not just inside the city.
What Leroy's referencing is when I originally wrote the grant, I wrote it as a multi-jurisdictional grant. We were gonna put a camera in Crescent, Cashion, Langston.
Logan County, basically.
Yes, because we dispatch for them and stuff like that. When they awarded the grant, they specifically left that out. We are under no obligation to put it in any other community. If you decide to put it in another community, all of those are interested in it.
You've talked to Damon and all.
I didn't talk to Damon because we're not putting one specifically in the county. We're putting them in the other cities.
I see.
But right now, this project does not include any cameras outside the city.
Correct. And that's one of the things at the bottom here is, hey, if you accept this, that's one of the things we would talk about. If you don't want them in another community, we don't have to put them there. If you want them in another community, we can put them there. It's totally up to you.
But right now, the proposal is they're all
Correct.
inside city limits.
Inside city limits, okay.
Well, it's up to
All right.
those communities. isn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Right, and Leroy had me reach out to those communities to see if it would even be an issue, and all three of them that I reached out to are on board.
Okay, all right.
Are they gonna help pay for them when the honeymoon's over?
Well, if they want to keep them, they would. I mean, I don't know why we would pay for that.
So, in the case of a stolen car, and the thief takes the tag off, your system's looking for that car, regardless of the tag. And then, just since we're talking about stolen cars so much. So that stolen car, the thief takes the tag off and comes through Guthrie, it's in the system, it's looking for a red Honda. It'll point out every red Honda that comes.
No, it will not.
I mean, okay, so, but the stolen red Honda with no tag on it comes
If
through.
it doesn't have a tag, it's not gonna pop up.
Well,
Which
you
is
could get
kinda
an
good, because, I mean, cars without tags get stopped a whole lot.
Yeah, that's not gonna
Well-
get very far without a tag.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I saw one getting towed just the other day.
I'm sure.
But you had an opt-out. You sent some information on opting out.
Yes, after talking a little bit back and forth with Dawn, and, one of the things that we worked with Flock is, yes, we can offer our citizens an opt-out if that's what you all wanna do.
So it reads my tag, but it goes, oh, they're opt-out, so I'm not gonna read that tag. So
My understanding is as soon as your tag
What if
pops
the
up and
car
it's on
thief
the
comes in and
no-go
says, "I
list, it
wanna
just
opt out,"
automatically
then-
erases.
well, okay.
I can include.
Well, sure.
All
Because
right,
of the time I
Hector?
opt out, they're gonna look at me and go, have a criminal record?
I think you're gonna have a lot of people opt out. And here's
Oh,
my
sure,
deal.
I'm sure.
Do we have criminals inside Guthrie? We do.
Sure.
But what I'm more concerned about is like one of the places this would've helped us, several places would've helped us. This would've helped us on a triplet murder case we worked. We had to go, foot to every damn business in town looking for video. Not that we wouldn't have to do some of that anyway, but if we had some of these cameras up and we could narrow down the time and the place, we would know who to go hit. I sat down with my CID people the other day, and just on that case alone, we think that this camera system would have saved us 50 man-hours. 50 man-hours. On the case where we had the dead body dumped at the hospital, and everybody fought back and forth forever about whose jurisdiction it was, when it happened, where it happened, why it happened. We estimate that would have saved us 30 man-hours up there on that, and it would have clarified a lot more things really quickly, and you would have got the proper, appropriate agency involved a lot sooner. And when we're talking about deaths and big crimes like that, the sooner we get people involved, the faster those crimes will get solved.
You have some good points.
You do too.
And, I'm not scared of it as much as I am, like I say, it chips away to where we're not quite as much community. The faceless, nameless guy is watching. And I don't want to be the guy that brings it to my hometown. I understand, on one side of me, it goes, if my granddaughter was missing,
And that's right, and I know you don't rate your hometown, but
Yeah.
ultimately, we want this place to be safer.
Yeah.
Don't we want to grow the community? Isn't that what we're trying to do as well?
Right.
no, it's a tough deal.
I think it's a progressive step, and if I understand things, we're talking about something that has no cost to the community for the first 2 years. We have an opportunity to evaluate it, and as well as evaluate how the community responds to it over those 2 years. And if we get negative pushback, we can just say, hey, we're not going there, or we're not ready to go there.
Can we just?
Just a minute.
Okay.
And then we also have the confidentiality issue that I think has been addressed a little bit anyway. And certainly, again, if we recognize that our confidentiality, our personal data, if you will, is viewed many times when we're on most of the interstates and major highways in our state, I think it brings it to a certain level of understanding here. I mean, confidentiality here is way up here. Every time we get on I-35 or Turner Turnpike or whatever, it's down here. I mean, and we're already driving it, and we use it every day. Most of the people, many of the people in our community, certainly I do. But it just seems to me that we have no risk. We have an opportunity to potentially improve safety of our citizens. It just, that's what I understand.
So if it was to pass and we get pushback and all this hate, can we say, well, the mayor wanted it,
Yeah,
so we just,
yeah, yes.
Well, one thing you can look at and you
Yeah.
can tell your constituents is just a bona fide fact, is that wherever they go, their plates have already been read.
oh, that's true.
Okay, and so if you're a criminal,
Yeah.
you're already being tracked.
Yeah, I
If
know.
you're a non-criminal, you have nothing to worry about. It's just simple as that. That's how that works.
But if you're in where the black and white mixes like Tracy,
Then that's when they start really reading them.
Jeff?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
On this, let's say you have somebody that's disappeared, it's like a missing victim or something, or even like somebody's walked away. We've had, 2 or 3 people have walked away. They've got Alzheimer's or.
It won't help with walkaways, because
Right.
their
Okay, but you
software
could-
only picks up tags.
Right, but
You're
I'm
only
saying,
gonna be
let's
on the
say-
road.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're in a car and they've driven off the road, it might be able to help us locate somebody like that as well, right?
Sure, just like our runaway that made it to Oklahoma City.
Right, that's what I was asking, that's what I meant.
I mean, if we hadn't got Oklahoma City to run it through their flock system, God knows when we would have found her.
Now, here's another thing, every time you walk into Walmart, your picture's taken.
For silver alerts / amber alerts, that's also a list that's automatically provided to your police department. So if it's in another community, they've entered it into the NMAC, which is the National Missing People, that will automatically be alerted proactively as well.
To whatever community, if an Amber Alert pulled into Guthrie, for example, tag number XJY555, our guys are gonna be notified of it.
Yes.
And make sure it's a red Honda.
And it's, like I said, it is.
We seem to be hard on red Hondas these days.
It's strictly packaged.
I always use that. I'm gonna start using my car, which is an orange Jetta. It'll be a lot less likely to be in the crowd, so.
I don't have near a problem with the technology since Leroy brought up some valid comments.
Well,
on
that
the
would be
grant.
my recommendation. I think the motion should be to, or whatever, if you want to try to approve it, and then on the condition that Leroy works through the contract to his satisfaction.
I'll go for that.
Well, see, that's what I would like to do and make a motion for that effect.
Sure, I'm good with that. Leroy brings up some very good points. He's the money guy.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve it on a temporary basis for 2 years. It will be revisited again after that, pending Leroy, working out through the contract verbiage so that we're with Billy, so that we're protected.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Hector, you got 2 years with me.
Submit. Leroy?
I just wanted to point out, I'd give $1 for every picture of the mayor that he's not smiling.
You'll never give up $1.
Not too many out there. Okay. All right, folks, submit your order. Submit your vote. Submit your vote, please.
Must be dinner time.
Yeah.
All votes granted.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to move forward with the provisions as was identified in the motion that council and city manager review the funding mechanism and the documentation in it.
One of the things I'd like to point out at the end of this, Justin was not able to be here tonight. He had another commitment, and I thought Aaron did a great job. He was actually doing 2 jobs tonight.
Yes, he was.
And very appreciative of him being flexible where he can do that.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
And guys,
Chief,
I wanna
thank you.
thank you for giving me the opportunity to try
There you go.
for our community. And Hector, thank you very much. We
Yep.
appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Hector.
Hector, thank you. Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right,
You
city-
know, I'll
very
be
good.
seeing you in 2 years, Chief.
City managers report.
Hopefully we can do a check-in before
I'm
then.
practicing.
In the meantime, Orange Jetta in your community.
Orange Jetta, all right, right. Move that over.
No
to
city
Red
managers report.
Hot. Okay.
No,
Item number 6, city manager report.
I've cried enough tonight.
Item number 7, request or comments from members of the city council. Councilman Bothroyd.
Well, I just want to let everybody know that, Chief, I hope this works out, and I appreciate the work you've done on it, appreciate Aaron. And, you gotta be careful and wary and watch for deer right at this part of the year, because they come creeping out, and they dive right into your vehicle.
I heard a guy hit one.
Yeah, that's all I got. Oh, I got hit hard.
Councilman Williams?
Well, I was
Stuck in my head.
adamantly against this idea for the 2 weeks prior to this, but, you're talking about, leaving here either direction, it's true. And Leroy's questions and his input really gave me some confidence on that. And it's obvious to see the positive points, but I just hate giving up any kind of privacy. I don't care what it is, but it is what it is, and we're not gonna change that. But also, I want to say, Leroy, earlier you were giving all the kudos to councils before me and people in the city concerning, the purchasing of newer equipment. And you so humbly gave everybody credit, but you're the reason. You're the reason, I know, because you see in advance, you look in advance and you set up these accounts to where money can go and save and perhaps do that. So hats off to you for that.
Thank you.
Amen. Councilman Channel?
I hate to admit it, but I agree with what William says. And on all counts, even you, Leroy. But the technology is intriguing. And, I guess what changed my mind, I looked at it as Hector's got 2 years. If not, we'll kick him to the curb. I mean, we'll know at the end of that time if it's worth saving or not. So you've got that sermon put together. I warned you.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when you opt out.
Wednesday, or Friday.
Thursday.
Thursday, 11 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't where I was going with that. Okay, at 11 o'clock, for those that don't know, the city council and city manager, since it's Thanksgiving, we're gonna cook lunch for everybody at the fire department. On your lunch hour, just come by, we'll give you some. If you wanna, we're gonna have boxes, if you wanna put it in the box and go back to your hole, or if you wanna stay there and socialize. It's for all the employees or whoever happens to show up. But Friday, wind chills in the teens. So get your long coat out. If the dog's gonna be cold, not my dog. If anybody's cold at my house, it won't be my dog, it'll be me. But it's coming, y'all. And it was blue on the map, and it was teens for wind chills, so get ready. Wrap the pipes, do whatever you gotta do.
Steve? Say something?
We've got, yeah, of course, Brian, you know that. We've got a big festival coming up, our Churchill Christmas coming up. I think starts off the 26th with the street festival, and I think the sidewalks, there are gonna be a bunch of sales downtown, and the streets will be blocked off, and then a lighted parade kind of kicks off the Churchill Christmas on the 26th of this month. Then in the first weekend in December, they start with the real things with the home tours, and of course our Churchill Christmas downtown, the Victorian Walk, that people come from all over the state and outside the state to come and see Guthrie America and the great festival that we have. So it's one of the most popular things in our community, and just want all of us to support and thank in advance all the people that have been working for a number of months to make it a success, as it always is. We've got territorial governors that are running for position. That, of course, will be announced. The winner will be announced at the end of the parade. And the parade, I think, starts at the Masonic Temple, comes down Oklahoma, ends up over at the State Printing Building, Capitol Printing Building. And the lighting of the Christmas tree, a traditional tree at Honor Park, is all at that same time. So that's on, that'll be on the 26th of this month. So be there. Leroy?
You might add on December 2nd, Kiwanis has their annual auction, and that's their major fundraiser for funding all their programs they do for children in the community.
Yeah, one of the civic clubs, the Kiwanis Club is having their annual auction. Right here will be many people taking the auction bids on it. It's their major fundraiser for a number of programs that they have for the community and for city that is served by the Kiwanis and their programs and their people. So if you got something that you want to donate to the Kiwanis for this great cause, do that. Keep on the 2nd, get ready to bid, because there's really good stuff. So bid often, bid high, and if you don't want to bid, come on out and join the Kiwanis, or the Rotary, or the Lions, one of the civic organizations. Be a part of the community that way. Any last comments?
Who put up the Christmas decorations? Did you do that, Kim? Or
Aaron.
Aaron?
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate the Christmas. It's nice to see. It looks Christmassy.
You're gonna go break out the song, are you?
No.
You might.
I promise.
You might.
No.
All right, let's see. We will, discussion, action, I'm sorry. Consider approval to convene into executive session pursuant to authority of Title 25 for the purposes of discussing confidential communication between the City Council and our attorney regarding selecting the law firm of Fuller Still and Franz Law Group to serve as counsel to the City of Guthrie in litigation involving e-cigarettes for the marketing, sales, practice, and products liability which could cause harm to the City of Guthrie.
So moved.
Have a motion? Is there a second? Have a motion and a second? Any other questions or discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes, Ryan.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those present to move into executive session as stated. We will be back, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, did you run over one?
No, it hit me.
Oh,
Right in
really?
midair. It just came
We'll do it.
Where at?
at the last council meeting when I left here, right on Division.
Really?
Yeah, right in front of my property. I mean, just right there. I was getting ready to turn in. Just getting ready to hit the
You were
brakes.
saving me.
I guess you're behind me.
That, yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Submit your votes.
Almost ran.
Unanimous approval from those present to come out of executive session. Item number 10, discussion action passing resolution related to the executive session about the selection of Fuller, Still, and Lance Franz Law Group to serve as counsel for the city of Guthrie in litigation involving e-cigarettes for marketing, sale practice, and product liability. No action was taken at this time. That being the last item on our agenda, we're adjourned. Thank you.